Next on the news. Airline passengers elated to take off those masks after a major court ruling. And the war is far from over. Russia stepping up attacks in the eastern part of Ukraine. Plus,
Please, I can't breathe. I got the kids in here.
Okay, where are they at?
3 police officers spring into action to save a mother and her children from a raging apartment fire. And how a freak accident left a dental patient with a tool in his lung. I'm Christine Persichetti. Current News starts right now. You can now lose the mask if you're taking a flight, but make sure you still have one if you're on the subway. There are big changes when it comes to covering your face, even as COVID cases creep up in some major cities, including the Big Apple.
It's official on Southwest Airlines during this whole single thing.
Passengers erupt in applause on a plane after finding out a federal judge overturned the White House's mask mandate for airplanes and other public transportation.
Don't ever let them cover your faces again.
Woo! Amen.
An attendant on this flight walked through the aisle so travelers could throw out their masks. It's optional now, but some at LaGuardia Airport say they'll keep their faces covered.
In traveling here and being in downtown in New York and everybody not able to not wear masks and things, I felt much more comfortable keeping mine on.
And don't get too comfortable without the mask because you'll still need it underground. The MTA is keeping its mandate in place. As for the city as a whole, Mayor Eric Adams says we're not there yet.
So we are advising New Yorkers to wear a mask, but we're not at the point of mandate right now. Hospitalizations are at a steady level, deaths are at a steady level.
But he says he is willing to pivot and will consider bringing back masks in schools and the Key to NYC program if his health team recommends that. And Mayor Adams agrees with Governor Kathy Hochul when it comes to keeping the Big Apple open.
We need healthy bodies, healthy minds, and healthy economy. They all go together.
Meanwhile, just this week, Philadelphia became the first major city in the U.S. to bring back its indoor mask mandate. Migrants trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border are now at their highest level in 2 decades. This as the U.S. gets ready to lift a pandemic-era order that turned away asylum seekers. Immigration authorities say they stopped more than 221,000 migrants trying to cross the border in March alone. That's a 33% increase from a month earlier. U.S. Border Protection detained more than 5,000 Ukrainians last month at U.S. land, sea, and air borders. According to new data, that's a significant increase from the 1,100 detained in February. The Department of Homeland Security announced Monday that the Biden administration is extending temporary protected status for Ukrainians for another 18 months. That will allow refugees to stay in the U.S. and apply for employment authorization. Meanwhile, Russia is ratcheting up its offensive to take control of Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland. This is one of the largest barrages of strikes since the beginning of the invasion. And as Chris Wynn reports, this battle for Donbass is expected to be long and bloody for both sides.
In Ukraine, Russian forces are ramping up attacks in Donbass, a sprawling region that blankets much of the eastern part of the country. The battle for control of the territory, which has been the front line of Ukraine's conflict with Russia since 2014, could define Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion after his forces suffered failures in Kyiv and across much of central and northern Ukraine. As Russian troops advance, thousands of civilians are trying to flee, but unsure of where to go next.
Over the last days, there has been a continuous increase in shelling and attacks.
In the southern city of Mykolaiv, residents describe the ongoing chaos.
This sound just woke me up and I was like paralyzed. And then in 3 seconds, this huge explosion. And you understand that you have no time to run. You just have to live through this.
Ukrainians devastated by the horrors of war at the hands of the Russian military.
I feel only hate. We can't forgive it, maybe for life.
Russia continued its bombardment of cities Monday with at least 4 missile strikes reported in the western city of Lviv, where at least 7 people were killed, according to Ukrainian officials. Chris Wynn, Currents News.
The war in Ukraine is dividing the Russian faithful. National churches, parishes, and even families arguing over whether they will support Moscow Patriarch Kirill, especially since the head of the Russian Orthodox Church has publicly been supporting the war. In the U.S., some believers are switching churches. In Italy, an Orthodox parish wrote a letter to Moscow severing all ties with the Patriarchate, and an Orthodox seminary in France petitioned their bishop to do the same. Even in the Netherlands, police had to separate parishioners who came to blows over the war. It's the same debate happening at the World Council of Churches, which is facing mounting pressure to expel the Russian Orthodox Church. Those against the Patriarch have argued he invalidated the church's membership by backing the war. But acting General Secretary of the WCC and Russian Orthodox leader Father Ioan Saka pushed back against the expulsion, saying it is easy to exclude, excommunicate, demonize, but we are called as WCC to use a free and safe platform of encounter and dialogue to meet and listen to one another, even if and when we disagree. Explosions targeting schools in Afghanistan have killed at least 6 people. 17 were wounded in the blast outside the schools in the Afghan capital of Kabul. Several students were among the dead. Eyewitnesses say it was a chaotic scene.
It was a bad situation. Smoke and dust were everywhere. It was a horrible suicide attack.
The Taliban denied any involvement in the explosions, and no militant groups have claimed responsibility so far. Authorities have released an independent autopsy report on the shooting death of Patrick Lyoya, an attorney for the Lyoya family releasing the findings on Tuesday.
Based on scientific evidence, we can confirm that Patrick Lyoya was shot in the back of his head. That is now scientific evidence of this tragic killing and what his family believes was an execution.
The forensic pathologist who conducted the report further explained the large caliber bullet entered from the center back of Lyoya's head and stopped near his right temple. The 26-year-old was shot and killed by a police officer after a traffic stop on April 4th in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The unidentified officer is on paid leave while an investigation is underway. A government-issued death certificate will be released after other tests are completed. Georgetown University is working to make amends for its history of owning and selling slaves. The efforts began in 2015 when the Working Group on Slavery, Memory, and Reconciliation was formed. The group's work led to a formal apology and a pledge by the Jesuit order running the school to raise $100 million to support educational opportunities and scholarships for the descendants of the 272 slaves the order sold to keep the school afloat financially. Those hundreds of slaves are just part of Georgetown's long history with slavery. Adam Rothman, a professor of history there, explains more about how the school's involvement with slaves went past just selling them.
I think Georgetown was part of what you might call a pro-slavery moral order, that both in just the way the school functioned through the use of slave labor, the way students brought slaves to campus, the way it was rooted in a slaveholding economy, that was a lesson in itself. It kind of reinforced the moral sense of slavery. But the students and faculty at Georgetown also explicitly defended and promulgated pro-slavery principles. We have records, for instance, of the Philodemic Society, the Student Debating Society, actually holding debates about whether or not slavery was moral, whether slaves should be emancipated. And in most of those debates, the students came down on the side of slavery. There's a speech that a key Georgetown faculty member gave in 1835, I believe it was, a Jesuit priest named James Ryder, attacking abolitionism, defending slavery, arguing that Catholics should oppose abolition. You know, this is what he said in public. Now imagine the kinds of things they talked about in private or in the classroom or just in daily life. So in that sense, Georgetown is the flagship educational institution of the Jesuits, of Catholic America in the early 19th century, was really a pillar of a pro-slavery moral order. So in all of these ways, from the practical to the material to the ideological, Georgetown was deeply connected to the slave regime.
In 2021, Georgetown also started a Racial Justice Institute designed to help current and future scholars and activists work to address the remnants of slavery. There's a lot more news headed your way. A heartfelt reunion in the face of uncertainty. One Ukrainian family's harrowing journey to safety. And it was a daring rescue out of Indianapolis, how a team of police officers saved a family from an apartment fire. Plus, construction workers in Virginia going above and beyond, why the patients of a children's hospital are asking, where's Waldo?
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
Since the start of Russia's invasion, tens of thousands of Ukrainians have been forcibly deported into Russia, while others actually fled to the country that's attacking them, saying it was the only way to survive. Selma Abdelaziz spoke to one family that was finally able to reunite after making a harrowing journey.
Mila Turshin does not trust the man she's about to meet.
Добрий день.
He is a smuggler.
Я Люда.
She is anxious, looking for her mom and sister, hoping they are here.
Привет. Привет. Так, стоп. Де мама?
It's Vida, her sister. Brief joy, but there's no time to hug her mom. The smuggler wants to be paid now.
Раз, два, три.
$500 US for the pair, much more than most families fleeing war can afford. Getting to safety is dangerous. This is the story of one family's escape into Russia after its troops bombed and occupied their city. They are from Izum, a city under siege. Mila's phone was filled with videos like this. Living in Cleveland, Ohio, she had no way to call her family, no way to find out if they were alive.
So this is your room?
We first met Mila a day earlier at this refugee shelter where she volunteers.
Somebody saw that a missile actually hit my backyard, and I was crying so bad. I just don't know. Maybe they're dead already there.
She finally got a call, but it was not from Izum.
I heard them for the first time after a whole month. I was so torn. I was happy they're alive, but I was terrified that they're in Russia. And I don't know, should I be happy or should I be sad?
Mila's only option, she says, was to hire a smuggler to drive her family from Russia to safety here in Poland. Now they are reunited. But how did the victims of Putin's war end up in Russia? Desperate to flee, they tell us they could only find one way out. A private driver offered a ride to the Russian border.
Were you scared to go to Russia?
They were more afraid to stay where they were because it was hell and they needed to go somewhere to escape that.
Thousands of Ukrainians have faced the same. Many say they had no choice. It was go to Russia or die.
That was Selma Abdelaziz reporting. As of last week, Russian officials claimed that more than 674,000 Ukrainians have been relocated to Russia. A Catholic school in Rome is hosting Ukrainian refugees. The Nicola Cusano University now has 80 migrant adults and children living with them. Among their lodgings is a classroom converted into a playroom and specific classrooms so the school-age kids can continue their studies. A few days after the war began, the university allocated €1 million, or more than $1 million, to send materials to Ukraine and to make its headquarters a safe place for refugees. It also invested another $1 million in 300 scholarships for Ukrainian students who want to continue or start their studies. A member of the Ukrainian army is asking Pope Francis for help. Major Serhiy Volhynia wrote a letter to the pontiff begging him to help save the people of Mariupol. Several civilian sites in the city have been bombed by Russian forces, including a children's and maternity hospital and a theater filled with hundreds of civilians. The Orthodox commander of the Marines in the southeastern Ukrainian city, writing to the Pope, "You have perhaps seen a lot in your life. However, I am certain that you have never seen what is happening in Mariupol, because this is precisely what hell on earth looks like." Dramatic body camera video just released of a family being rescued from an apartment fire. 3 fast-thinking officers in Indianapolis are being hailed as heroes. They rushed to save a mother and her 3 children from the flames. As Cody Adams reports, the video is being called heart-stopping.
Please, sir, I can't breathe. I got my kids in here.
Okay, where are they at?
They're right here in my bed.
How old are they?
2 and 3.
It was Monday morning, April 11th, when an Indianapolis apartment building at East Street and Hannah Avenue caught fire.
A lot of times fire has them under control by the time we get there. So my first thought was, let's get everybody out of adjacent buildings and get them safe.
As people evacuated the building, officers found a woman and her 2 children trapped on the 2nd floor.
Just figuring out any way, shape, or form I could help her. Granted, the fire was going through the front, so I couldn't run up to the front. I can't jump that high to jump to the window, so I just figured any game plan that we could put in action to help her out.
The officers acted immediately, putting together a plan of action.
By the time that I arrived around back, Officer Carroll, I had heard him saying, "Can you toss them down to us?" and ask their ages to see if we were going to be able to catch them or not.
IMPD officers Laird, Hupp, and Carroll positioned themselves under the window as the mother dropped her children to safety.
It was at that point, any means necessary to keep those kids safe, even if it mattered or meant one of us to get injured. If we kept them safe, that's all that mattered at that point.
The mother then able to jump from the building where officers caught her, all 3 getting out safely.
We genuinely want to help people when they're in need, and whether they're in need for that or they're out of gas or they've had a car accident. A lot of times when the police are called or anyone calls 911, it's on the worst day of their life, and we have to remember that.
Officers say it was quick thinking by everyone that made sure the family is together and safe.
That was Cody Adams reporting. The officers say the teamwork of everyone involved is what made the difference in saving the family. Health officials are concerned about a puzzling outbreak of a mysterious liver disease in children. The illness was first identified in Britain. Officials say 74 cases of a different type of hepatitis or liver inflammation have been found in children there since January. Additional cases have also been found in Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands, and Spain. But now 9 cases of children from 1 to 6 years old have sprung up in Alabama. Some other concerning news for parents. COVID cases for children are up for the first time in about 3 months. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, more than 33,000 kids tested positive last week. And while that's down from the peak in January, it's the first increase seen in months for child cases. Johns Hopkins University says new cases for all age groups are up in more than half of the U.S., but the daily rate is down compared to 2 months ago. The CDC is launching a new center to help predict emerging health threats. The agency says its new Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics will be like the National Weather Service, but for infectious diseases. The center will use data to guide decisions about broad public health needs, like developing vaccines. The CDC will also help individuals decide whether it's safe for them to go into public spaces like movie theaters. The launch is part of a broader review of CDC systems and processes. Some construction workers in Virginia are having some fun while they work. They've decided to play a real-life game of Where's Waldo with the young patients at the nearby Children's Hospital. Cindy Jackstimer has their story.
A new face has made an appearance at Carillion's Crystal Spring Tower construction site. Josh Young has brought the Where's Waldo stories to life.
Units have tried to do something unique, something to brighten their day. So we had, came up with the idea to take a cut out of Waldo. Everybody knows the children's story Waldo, so we take him each day and put him in a new spot somewhere on the site so the kids have something to look forward to.
The site is right below Carilion Children's Hospital, giving patients and staff the perfect view to ask, where's Waldo?
And I literally just got this little spark of joy and this really fun moment.
Carillion's child life specialist Kathleen Boone says it's important to bring joy and play to pediatric patients, and Waldo is doing just that.
I can imagine that's what the children are feeling as well. Just a fun surprise and something that they weren't expected and something that brings them joy, which is really important to have those pockets of joy, I think, here, because it can be really difficult.
Each day, you can find the 8-foot-tall Waldo cutout hiding in a different spot at the construction site.
Just to brighten the day over there with the community and the patients and the staff, and I had guys lined up, so they enjoy every single morning. First thing they do when they show up is find a new place for Waldo.
The crew with Robbins and Morton says they have big plans to keep people asking, where's Waldo?
That was Sydney Jacksheimer reporting, and one of those big plans Sydney was talking about is to dress up the Waldo cutout in different costumes for the holidays. And from fun in the hospital to dangers at the dentist, coming up on Currents News.
What happens if he can't get it out? And really the answer was part of my lung was going to have to get removed.
How a routine dental checkup landed an Illinois man in the hospital. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Going to the dentist is bad enough, but a Wisconsin man actually inhaled a dental tool and wound up in the hospital. As Kent Wainscott reports, doctors had to use a rare medical procedure to remove it.
The CT scan tells the shocking story. An inch-long dental drill bit lodged deep in Tom Josie's lung.
How did this happen?
Well, I don't know. I was at the dentist getting a tooth filled, and the next thing I knew, I was told I swallowed this tool. So I didn't really even feel it going down. All I did was really felt a cough.
Doctors believe that inhaling just before he coughed sent the metal object deep into the 60-year-old maintenance worker's airwaves. So deep, says pulmonary expert Dr. Abdul Al-Reyes, that normal scopes couldn't reach it.
When I saw the CAT scan and where that object is sitting, it was really far down on the right lower lobe of the lung.
What happens if he can't get it out? And really the answer was part of my lung was going to have to get removed.
That's when Dr. Al-Reyes and the Aurora Kenosha team decided to try a newer device, one not designed for removing foreign objects.
Is more for early detection of cancer, especially lung cancer.
But you knew you could use it for this.
Exactly right. The reason is this. The size of this catheter.
As you can see from the video of the scan, the medical team was able to navigate the narrow airwaves and reach the drill piece and pull it out without any harm to the patient.
And I was never so happy in my life when I opened my eyes and I saw him with a smile under that mask shaking a little plastic container that had the tool in it.
A souvenir Josie says he now keeps on a shelf at home.
Wow. That was Kent Wainscott reporting. The drill bit was in the man's lung for 4 days. The doctor who removed it says he's heard from colleagues in Michigan and Ohio who report seeing cases nearly identical to this one. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.